The hull appeared on my scope at 0347 local, drifting through the outer bands of the Ashfeld Drift, a dead zone near the galactic rim where wreckage from old wars collects like silt at the bottom of a river. I had been assigned to the survey cruiser Mirren for 11 weeks, my first deep space posting after graduating the Valith Hegemony's Classification Academy. My job was simple: tag debris. Every object in known space gets a file, a designation, a line in the archive. That is the foundation of everything the Valith are. We classify, we catalog, we know. In 11 million entries spanning 4,000 species, the archive had never returned a null result. I tagged the hull as standard wreckage. Debris category, salvage priority low. The mass readings were unusual. The object was large, nearly 1,400 meters along its longest axis, but size alone wasn't unprecedented. Old warships from the Trellian expansion still turned up in drift zones, gutted and cold. I logged its thermal signature at 0.003 above ambient, residual decay, nothing worth a second look. Commander Halk reviewed my tag from the bridge and confirmed it without comment. We had tagged 900 objects in the Ashfeld Drift over the past 6 days. This was 901. I should have looked more carefully at the silhouette. It wasn't Trellian. It wasn't Kespari or Mundori or any of the 47 hull architectures I had memorized during my second year at the academy. The lines were wrong. Too angular at the bow, too heavy through the midsection, with a ventral ridge that ran the full length of the keel, like the spine of something that had once been alive. The hull plating was battered, deep scoring, carbon deposits, mismatched panels, where repairs had been welded over repairs over repairs. But the geometry beneath the damage was deliberate, purposeful. Someone had built this thing to look exactly the way it looked, and that shape was not in any file I had ever studied. I flagged the entry for secondary review. Commander Halk pulled the archive query himself and frowned at the display. "Terran," he said. I had heard the word. Everyone in the academy had. The humans were a footnote in the galactic record, a species that had been active for a brief window roughly 8 centuries ago, then gone quiet. No territory currently held, no diplomatic presence, no vessels registered anywhere in the hegemony's logs. The archive listed them under historical reference, subcategory dormant, with a notation that their last known communication had been a single broadband transmission, a sequence of coordinates followed by 3 words in their native language that our linguists had translated, roughly, as, "We will wait." Nobody had understood what it meant. Nobody had needed to. Dormant species didn't require understanding. They required a file, and the humans had one. "Tag it Terran wreckage," Halk said. "Historical salvage. Priority 3. I tagged it, but I left my deep scanner cycling. At 0400, the thermal signature ticked upward to 0.007 above ambient. At 0412, it reached 0.03. By 0419, it was climbing through 0.4, and I was standing at my console with both hands flat on the display because the numbers had stopped making sense. Wreckage does not warm. Dead reactors do not cycle, and the power curve I was watching, smooth, patient, exponential, the unmistakable rise of a system waking from deep dormancy, was not in any file the archive held for dead ships. "Commander," I said. Halk was already staring at the same readout. His face had gone the color of dry chalk. "Reclassify," he said quietly. I tried. I initiated the full-spectrum deep scan protocol, standard procedure for any hull above 200 meters, and ran the classification algorithm against every entry in the archive. 11 million vessel types, 4,000 species, 300,000 years of galactic naval history organized in perfect taxonomy, the most complete record of spacefaring civilization ever assembled. The system returned null. No classification, no match, no file. I had never seen a null return. No one aboard the Mirren had. No one in the Valith hegemony had, as far as the institutional record showed. The archive did not return null. That was the premise of our civilization. We knew everything that moved in known space. Our treaties, our trade agreements, our military doctrine, all of it rested on the certainty that no object existed without a corresponding entry in our records. The hull's running lights came on. Not all at once, one by one, in sequence, from bow to stern. 1,400 meters of amber pinpoints igniting across that battered plating like a city waking before dawn. Then the engine ports at the stern flared white at their cores, deepening to warm orange at the edges, and a low-frequency harmonic rolled through the Mirren's hull and into the bones of my hands where they pressed against the console. Commander Halk called for fleet support. 47 Valith warships in the surrounding sectors began converging on the Ashfeld drift. He was calm, methodical, following protocol exactly as written. An unclassified object of significant mass had transitioned from inert to active. Standard response was containment and analysis. I was watching the scan data scroll and understanding none of it. The weapon systems the deep scan had detected did not correspond to any known technology. The drive signature was something I had no training for. Not plasma, not graviton, not antimatter. The archive labeled it unresolved propulsion methodology, which was the system's polite way of admitting it had no idea. The hull material analysis returned a compound the database called biological metallic hybrid, composition unknown. The ship's outer shell was partly organic. The wreckage I had tagged at 0347 was, in some fashion the archive could not articulate, alive. The ninth Vigil, that was the designation etched into the forward hull plating in the human's angular script, and our linguists decoded it within seconds, began to move. Not quickly, not aggressively. It rotated on its central axis with the slow, deliberate patience of something that had slept for 800 years and saw no particular reason to rush now that the sleeping was done. It oriented itself toward the galactic core, locked onto a heading, and began to accelerate. Commander Halk ordered the fleet to intercept. The first volley struck the ninth Vigil across its port quarter, concentrated plasma fire from 11 warships at optimal engagement range. The impacts bloomed white against the hull plating and dissipated. The biological metallic surface absorbed the energy the way stone absorbs rain. No structural damage registered on my scanner. No deviation from heading. No indication that the vessel had registered, in any meaningful way, that it had been fired upon. The ninth Vigil fired once. A pulse, broad spectrum, coherent, traveling at a velocity our sensors could not resolve, swept through the forward formation. 14 ships occupied that space. When the pulse passed, the space was empty. Not debris, not expanding gas or tumbling hull fragments. Empty, as if those 14 vessels had never occupied that volume of space at all, and the universe had simply corrected the record. The fleet scattered. The ninth Vigil did not pursue. It fired 3 more times over the next 11 minutes. Each pulse identical, the same calm and methodical output aimed along its heading. It was not fighting a battle, it was clearing a corridor. Anything in the path was removed. Anything outside the path was left untouched. I watched 3,400 ship loss markers appear on my display. The escape pods launched in cascading waves, thousands of them tumbling into the drift. The ninth Vigil did not target them. It did not deviate from its heading. It did not slow down. My pod separated from the Mirren 7 seconds before the 4th pulse erased her. I drifted in the Ashfeld drift for 9 hours, surrounded by the cold debris of what had been the largest Valith patrol fleet in the outer sectors, and I watched the ninth Vigil's drive signature contract to a point on my emergency scanner as it moved away, steady, patient, accelerating toward the galactic core on a heading it had locked 800 years ago, before the species that built it went quiet and left behind one transmission and one instruction. We will wait. I filed my report from the rescue station at Valith Prime 19 days later. Classification, null. Status, active. Heading, galactic core. Trajectory unresolved. Armament, unknown. Beyond current defensive capability. Hull composition, biological metallic hybrid. No countermeasure available. Recommendation, do not engage. Do not scan. Do not approach. Do not attempt to reclassify. The archive still shows the ninth Vigil's entry as null. It is the only null entry in 11 million records. The hegemony's senior taxonomists have proposed 17 different classification schemas for it, and all 17 have been formally rejected because none of them are accurate. You cannot classify something that operates outside every framework you possess. You can only note that it exists, and that your framework was the error all along. The ninth Vigil is still accelerating. It has not deviated from its heading. The humans said they would wait, and they did. For 800 years in a debris field at the edge of known space, tagged as wreckage by officers like me who believed that everything real had a file. I do not know where it is going. I do not know what it will do when it arrives. I know only that the waiting is over, and that I am the officer who classified it as scrap. The archive has updated the human entry from dormant to active. I do not think that is the right classification either, but I no longer believe the right one exists.